is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, where we are continuing a conversation about an incredible beer in the Paulaner Hefe-Weizen. Listen, I have loved this brewery for a very, very long time, and just lo and behold, I'm walking through Total Wine and More the other day, and I run into an old friend, Sean, who used to work at Brown Distributing years ago. He sold Barrel Amongst Beer, and I've noticed he's got a Paulaner shirt on, and I go, hey, what's going on? Haven't seen you in a while. Well, lo and behold, he works for the brewery. He sells Paulaner beer here in South Florida. And I was like, well, listen, I haven't never done a Paulaner beer before, which is criminal because I love the brewery. They have a great swath of beers. They have one of the legendary breweries in Germany. I said, hey, what's the beer in that portfolio that you think best fits Old Favorite Friday? What's your favorite? What's your go-to? You went with the Hefe-Weizen.
Yep.
Okay, and I could not be more thrilled. Hefeweizen's one of my go-to styles. One of the beers that got me into craft beer. Franziskaner Hefeweizen, Weihenstephaner Hefeweizen. I mean, changed the game for me, taught me what beer could be, and I have not had this in a long time. My God, were you right. So tell me a little bit about this beer, what you're tasting, and your experiences with it.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I think the Hefe is just a great example of like kind of a classic. It's not only a classic German style, but it's also a very popular style in like the American craft beers. And our Hefe is just something that's done really, really well. Very clean, very drinkable, approachable. A lot of the classic notes, kind of the banana,
Little bubble gum, little spicy clove going on there, but not over the top with any of those flavors.
Yeah, it's very, very drinkable. Not super high ABV. You can sit there and drink them. It's a really approachable kind of beer. I personally like the Hefe best. It's the #1 Hefe in Germany. It's also the #1 imported Hefe in the U.S. So a lot of, even though we'd like the beer to be more popular than it is, it's a lot of great accolades and kind of a really classic style.
Well, listen, we always talk about an Old Favorite Friday. The purpose of this series is to highlight beers that have been around forever, they're widely available, and people don't think about them as much.
Right.
And I don't think that's a great thing. You want to be the #1 selling beer all over the place. You want to be on everyone's lips. But I think what happens all too often is we get complacent. We forget how great beers are because so many new things are coming out.
Sure.
And this is such a great example of it. Not just with this beer, but this in particular, right? The Paulaner absolutely deserves it. But the Hefeweizen style, to me, once upon a time, if you owned a craft brewery in the U.S., you made a Hefe. Right? You made a Hefe or you made a Belgian Wit. You made one of those two beers for style. I certainly did in my first brewery. I made them all throughout the time that I've worked in the industry. And I feel like that's fallen off a little more. I don't see as many wheat beers. I don't see as many Hefes being made. If you just walk into a random local brewery, I'm not seeing them as much. I'm not saying they disappeared.
Right.
But it used to be like, okay, everyone made an IPA, they made a red ale, they made a brown ale, they made a stout, they made a Hefe.
Right.
I mean, basically. And we've seen a lot of that go to the wayside for super specialization. I only make IPAs, or they're eliminating those things and doing, the it styles, the pastry stouts, things of that nature. And I think it's really a shame because drinking a beer like this reminds you of like, oh, this is perfect.
Right.
This is what beer's supposed to taste like.
There's a reason it's been around this way for 400 years.
Yeah, and that's the real thing that gets me is that I don't understand how we have to rediscover these things as a culture when they've been so good for so long. There's never been a dip in quality, right? The taste may have changed slightly, but I think if you pour this for anybody who likes craft beer, whether they're into Hefes or not, the strain of yeast imparts flavors.
Right.
Here, that's where you get a lot of the banana flavor from, and a Hefeweizen. And there are some people that just kind of like don't care for that flavor. I dig it. But unless you're one of those people, if I pour you this beer and you don't like it, I have to question our friendship.
Right. It's just, like I said, it's a simple thing. Obviously there's complexity to it if you dig in, but it's just done really well. And I think you have a point where, we sort of get lost in trying all these different styles, making all these different styles, kind of getting stuck into ruts. And you kind of turn around and you kind of see where you came from, and a lot of people's first craft beers have been were wheat beers.
Yeah.
And I just think our beer kind of really exemplifies that style in a cool way, like in a very, very drinkable way.
And really across the board. I mean, the Oktoberfest. There's so many beers that you have. I mean, down here, there's a big Oktoberfest in Lake Worth. I feel like Paulaner's always there for that event. So across the board, if you're finding their beers in any store, you're going to have a good time.
Right.
Like, so don't, just because we're featuring the Hefeweizen, most of the time when we're featuring a beer on Old Favorite Friday, every beer from that brewery is pretty darn good.
Right.
It's very rare that you get a stinker from a brewery that makes some of the best beers in the world.
Sure.
Because they know what they're doing. So if you like the other styles, I highly recommend you go and pick this up. But I am shocked. I look back. I think we've only done one Hefeweizen in the history of Old Favorite Friday.
Really?
You probably don't know this. We've been doing this for over 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Right, and we do it every single week.
Yeah, I've been checking them out.
Yeah, so Weihenstephaner was the only one that we've ever done.
Really?
And Weihenstephaner, I believe, is one of the oldest breweries or the oldest brewery in the world, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so. But Paulaner was founded in the 1600s. When I do some research, by monks. We're Barrel of Monks Brewing. We are from the Trappist brewing tradition,
Right.
and I did not realize that. I mean, I guess you have a monk kind of on the label there, so
Brother Barnabas.
yeah. So I probably should have known that, but I never put two and two together. So
Right.
I think there's another layer. So it's not just the affinity to this style and a great beer. It's also the brotherhood of being a monk and being a brother.
Yeah, and it's actually brewed today at the same location that it was brewed in 1630s. So
Wow. The history of European beer, I mean, eventually we're going to get there. We'll all be dead. But
Yeah.
eventually the U.S. is going to have like these edifices built to like the 1980s, like Sierra Nevada will
Right.
eventually be like some kind of big
It'll be just like-
historical site.
just in ruins. And
Eventually. So I'm not looking forward to that because I
Sure.
won't be around. But it is amazing to think about the tradition of European beer, German beer, Belgian beer, and to think, like, I think you said earlier, and I'll just restate it, they've been doing it for so long for a reason. Like, it's been this good for a reason for so long. Like, if it stood this test of time, give it a try.
Right.
And if you go in there and you see it's the number one Hefeweizen beer in Germany, there's probably a reason why you should pick it up. And just, even if you're not into it, try it out and think about it. Like, why is this beer what it is? And I haven't even talked about the flavors here. Banana, a little bit of bubble gum, a nice, like, not a really dark, weedy, kind of big bready flavor, but a subtle bread flavor,
Yeah.
or a bready flavor, a subtle toasty flavor. And the thing that just impresses me to hell out of this beer, excuse me for a second, is the drinkability. I hate using that term because it's so overused, but
it's also vague, but it's you have a point. It's not super cloudy. It's very clean. If you look at the color, you do see the Hefe haze there.
Yeah.
But it's not heavy. You don't have to chew this beer. You just kind of. It's a great summertime beer. Matches really well with barbecues and any kind of spicy. Spicy kind of. Jerk wings, I think you mentioned before.
Yeah, we were talking about pairings and stuff. I think smoked meats, jerk wings, I think would go really well with this. I think that there is a preconceived notion for people that wheat beers are heavy, wheat beers
Right.
are thick, wheat beers are chewy. And there's a lot of examples of that, a lot of bad examples from U.S. breweries, quite honestly. It kind of
Right.
spoil the party for us here. But the classic examples are really, really drinkable. They leave a nice lingering flavor, but they're still crisp, they're still refreshing. They make you want to go in for another sip.
Right.
And unlike some of the other ones that are out there, and there are some, and I won't name, but there are a couple German breweries that are very popular in the US that have kind of more of those plump, chewy Hefes. They're good, but they're not as good as something like this.
Yeah, there's a place for it, but this is something that it's a summertime beer. It's
Yeah.
a lot of fresh flavors. And really light. It's my favorite for a reason. I'm definitely biased, but it's a great beer.
And that's the thing. We're in South Florida. If you're watching this from a different place, forgive me. But in South Florida, this is a beer that works year round because it's always warm. Right.
Summertime forever.
It's summertime forever. And I love the fact that it has that drinkability, but it has that nice orange color to it, which I showed a little bit earlier. It's not just this pale yellow.
Right.
It almost looks like it's going to be heavier than it is, and then you drink it and you're like, man, this is everything I want. It's crisp, it's flavorful. Listen, we love this beer, obviously. Want to support this brewery, please go out and find some Paulaner. You were telling me that obviously Total Wine and More specialty shops are going to carry this wherever you are.
Pretty much.
But if you're in South Florida, you were talking about Whole Foods.
Yep, most Whole Foods at least have the Hefe and our lager. A lot of fresh markets, and obviously Total Wine is the easiest place to find our whole portfolio. But Whole Foods is probably the best that there's a lot of locations of.
Yeah.
if you want to pick us up.
And you should. It's worth seeking out. As always, please tell us what we should be drinking next week for Old Favorite Friday. We love your suggestions. We love to delve into some beers every now and then. I'll see one and go, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't thought of that beer before. I found beers that I can't get my hands on. I'm asking friends to send me from different places in the country. So we love your suggestions. Please poke around the channel, see longer videos from the Instagram videos to the longer videos about all kinds of great beers just like this one that we highly recommend. We want you guys to be talking about. And we'll see you next week for Old Favorite Friday. Cheers.